Well, thank you, John, for joining us today, mate. We really appreciate you taking the time to have a bit of an inside Tsimos conversation with us and meeting the staff within the business at Tsimos. Now, yourself, John, sales and leasing, I think for 6 years. Is that right for Tsimos?
Not quite. I started August 2015, so we're coming up there, but a couple of months to go. But it's been a great opportunity, and it's been a really enjoyable period of my working life so far. So yeah, loving it.
Awesome. And again, I really appreciate you taking the time today, John, to have a chat with us. I guess I've got a series of questions here, and it's a shame we couldn't catch up in person because of Melbourne's recent dilemma with COVID, unfortunately. But the first question I really had for you, John, is talk to us about, I guess, what really attracted you to working in commercial property in the first place.
Well, I think I've always been interested in real estate, and I actually, when I was at school and leaving school, I thought that's where I was going. But we had a family business at the time, and I ended up going into that, and so it took a long while to find my way in. And along the way, I guess I have leased and owned, and we did a property development as well in commercial property. So I had a bit of an understanding of it, having been in the commercial world, I guess. And so when the opportunity arose, it seemed like a good fit. I think if I'd done it a year or two earlier, I was probably definitely going into residential. Mm-hmm. But as fate would have it, I ended up going into a hospitality business instead for a short period of time. And then by the time that was coming to an end, it was this opportunity arose out of nothing. And so I grabbed it with both hands, and very glad I did.
Yeah, and obviously commercial real estate very different to residential in that frame from your perspective.
Yeah, look, it is, but I guess the thing with commercial is that it's a numbers-based game, really. It's not all based on as much on emotion. I mean, there's definitely emotion in it, because there always is when there's money involved, and certainly larger sums of money. Yeah. But in terms of where you're going to live and where your kids are going to go to school and all those things, they're not as important. Some owners, some businesses can be a little flexible in location. So, their heart's set on going to Moorabbin or Braeside or somewhere, and they end up in the suburb next door, but close enough, then they can sometimes work with that. So, it's I guess that happens in residential as well, but certainly commercially, it's been one of those things that people, it's a numbers game. So.
Yeah, and I guess like any, because it is in essence a sales role or a facilitation role of a transaction between the customer and the vendor. I mean, that's typically very much up to the individual in terms of those motivations to get up in the morning and get out there and get the job done. I mean, what really motivates you day to day in that role?
I love the challenge. I've come to real estate late, so I can't stuff around and wander my way through. I actually have to get out there and the ground. So I think I am motivated, and I'm certainly driven. So I like to keep working and keep active. So and you're only as good as your last result, whether that's a sale or a lease. So you might have done a cracker last sale. That doesn't mean that you can sit back and relax. You got to keep going. You want the next one, and you want the next one, and I think each of those things, you kind of in your own mind want to tick off another level. So it's motivation's never been an issue for me because I'm hungry to be out there and doing things. So we can always be better. We can always do things better. I'm still learning the game, even though I've been around for a while in different industries. We can always be better, but I think, being motivated is not one that I have a problem with.
And I guess in that motivation as well, there's a lot of different people that you would meet in that process and sales. I guess I've worked obviously in that career space as well. There's a certain number of perks in terms of people that you get to meet and engage with in bits and pieces. I mean, what does a typical day for John look like in terms of that process engaging with people?
Look, again, I had a long time in retail, so I guess in a lot of ways there's it's the same. You're dealing with people on a day-to-day basis. You just got different products that you're dealing with. So in terms of, I really enjoy trying to match people with properties, whether it's a lease or a sale. We can't always do it. We have what we have available, and sometimes there's a perfect fit and sometimes there's not. But there's certainly a lot of satisfaction in knowing that the person's going into a place that they feel is going to be really suitable for them to run their business. And as I say, whether it's buying or selling or leasing or whichever one it is, there's a lot of satisfaction in trying to match that up. So for me, our days revolve around communication with owners, communication with clients on a sale or lease, depending on what properties we have available. Where deals are in the cycle. So are we close to finalising a sale? Are we close to finalising a lease? What paperwork do we need to do? So there's a whole raft of things. Generally, we've got inspections and a combination of calls and discussions and meetings and various things to prepare. And so it's a always changing every day, and it's enjoyable.
Yeah, constant new faces.
Yeah,
working through the process, but they're very much out on the road most of the time, I guess, John.
We're on the road. We're on the road a lot. Obviously, when you're on the road, there's things that always still need to be done. So the more time you spend out there, that sometimes the more you got to come back to. But that's just the way it goes, because it's not that way every day. It varies. Some days you're out on the road a lot, some days you're not, and you just work out your routine accordingly. And sometimes it means you go home at night and you catch up on things that you weren't able to do during the day. That's just the way it is. So.
Yeah, it sounds very much like a role that you get out as much as you put in.
100%. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. If you're prepared to do the work, it can be a fabulous industry to work in, and there's no doubt about that. And really where we make our own luck in a lot of ways. Sure, there's times when things don't go exactly the way you want them to go, but, you just got to dust yourself off and say, okay, well, that wasn't supposed to be. So where's the next one? So, and it comes along. Believe it or not, it's incredible sometimes how, a door can close and all of a sudden another one opens up. Someone's asked about something and you didn't think it was available, and all of a sudden the first person fell over, and then you ring them up and say, oh, guess what, think this is available now, and they go, oh, fantastic, and it just happens. So it's great when we can do that.
Yeah, and it's, I guess, a lot of communication, collaboration, as we sort of said at the beginning there. So, and I guess, John, for the audience's perspective watching this, what's that real watershed moment or peak of the commercial property career so far, from your perspective? Is there a story that you have that you think's one of the best you've done?
I think there's no doubt that when you start, everything's a bit of a milestone. So you sell your first property, that's a milestone. Could be a cheap one, could be a more expensive one. I think the first one I did was about $300,000 warehouse. Yeah. And it's just great to do it. Like you feel like you're underway. So from then on, your expectations lift. So I think the best sale that I've done so far is $3.5 million, and so the obviously from there you want to sell 5 million, 10 million, 20 million. You want to keep going, but they don't come along every day. So you've just got to work with each one that you get. And I think, for me, as I said before, the most satisfying thing is just knowing that you've matched someone into a property that just works, and that's a great feeling to know that that's happened, and it's a good thing for everybody. So that's probably they're the great things so far. But
no, absolutely.
To the next sale.
Yeah, no, well, that's the salesman's dilemma, right? It's always the next transaction. But
That's right.
it is interesting there, John, as well, because Tsimos obviously servicing a broad range across the different asset classes and bits and pieces, and yourself spending time both in sales and leasing. When we were talking the other week, you were talking about some agents just focus in the sales area, or residential might just focus in sales, but your role's really across both of those pillars. I mean, what sort of split would you say in terms of leasing to sales?
Well, I mean, right at the moment, there's not a lot of stock on the market. So I guess leasing's probably, 80%, 20% sales. But, the interesting thing is that when things are a little bit less, you've got other properties that you just look at ways that you might get some results on. So things that have been a little dormant, you find a way to get them sold. So, there's no doubt that the industrial part of the market is the stronger part from our point of view. But in saying that, I had an opportunity to sell a property in Coolangatta recently, and I sold one for a client probably 2 years ago, and they decided they were going to sell another place up there, and they were happy with what I'd done, so I got another opportunity, and we managed to get a sale at their asking price, which I thought initially was a pretty good number, but we managed to get there, and the people are happy, and it's just worked out really well. So they're exciting things that can come along. So every transaction I find enjoyable by and large. It's not just the big ones. It's really getting those matches. So when that happens, it's a great thing.
Yeah, no, we do see a lot of 5-star reviews for John on the Google page for Tsimos, mate. Well done for your efforts. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess one of the things that always intrigues me, because you must meet a number of different characters, whether they be eccentric, exciting, inspiring, energizing, those business owners that are looking to start their journey renting a commercial, purchasing a commercial space. Are there any particular characters that you'd have a story for us, John, where you thought that's an interesting one?
Look, really there are. Sorry, I think I've cut over you there. Look, there's every meeting is an interesting one, because you get to see different people, and sometimes it challenges you in how you respond and how you think about things, and sometimes you feel like you've known each other for a long time. But one that probably stands out the most, that I guess I'm sort of happy that we got a result, as an older guy that had a property that he owned in Cheltenham, and we went to sell it back in 2016, and I got a sale at a price that he was happy with. And it turned out we couldn't get a contract because someone else who had been representing him when he bought it put their name on the title, and then that person died. And so, unfortunately, it then became an adverse possession process, which took over 3 years to resolve.
Wow.
And I would ring this gentleman who was in his mid-80s, lived up in Echuca, every month or two just to see how he was going, and spoke to his lawyer. And anyway, they eventually worked through the whole thing, and finally he got to sell it, and we got to sell it to someone who paid more money than we'd originally going to sell it for, and has become a great client of ours as well. And so, that owner was very happy, got a good result, after a long toil, and it was just really satisfying to see us sort of be able to work through that very difficult process for him at a really, at a time in his life when he just didn't need those sort of problems. And then get that result, and at least he could live out his days knowing that he had that money there. So that was probably one of the more satisfying ones for me. It was just great getting through that problem.
Yeah, and there's a lot of nuances that can pop up, I guess, in that process, whether it be sales, leasing, but it's just interesting that that perspective there of a 3-year journey to try and resolve one of those challenges.
Right. That's right. I mean, the real estate, they always say, is the long game. So it's we can be in touch with owners for for many years before things eventually happen. That can be even from a leasing point of view. You know, we all would love that an owner rings up and says, I want you to come and appraise my property. And the next day they say, right, you got the deal. But it doesn't always happen that way. So, you know, you've got to stay in touch with people. You've got to be persistent, and, you know, you've got to keep working. And every day, you know, is another day closer to you know, another listing and another property coming online. So, you know, you just have to keep working at it. That's the thing. So if anyone thinks that it's going to happen quickly, well, they're probably in for a bit of a rude shock. But, you know, that's
very relationship based in that essence. So, John, I've only got a couple more questions left here.
Sure.
So the next one I had was, I guess, given your experience, we've heard from Matt and Steve a fair bit about their advice around, you know, people embarking on commercial property investment. I know that it's a hot market in industrial at the moment, but given your experience, I guess 3 pieces of advice that you would give to people watching this in terms of investing or potentially divesting from their commercial property.
Yeah, look, I think from an investment point of view, the important thing is to look at what is important to you. You know, what are you looking to achieve? You know, are you an owner occupier looking to have a property of some sort, an industrial or an office or even a retail? Or are you an investor who's looking for a return, but you've got some money into different things? So I think the first thing is to really look at what it is that, you know, that you're wanting to achieve there. And then from there, you know, we can help work through that process of what's going to be the best option for you. So check out what it is that's important. You know, which type of property do you feel most comfortable with? What are you looking to get out of that property? You know, some don't have as much capital gain as something else, but they can still serve a very valuable role in either a portfolio and or in, you know, in someone's operation, because it serves a particular purpose at a particular point in time. So I know we all want things to go up, and that's just, you know, our expectation of real estate. But I think the reality is that sometimes that's not the only driver. You know, there can be other things. So those would be a couple of things that I would look at. And from a divesting point of view, I really think, you know, where are you at? You know, are you in the process of retiring? Are you looking to move out of a particular property that you happen to own because you need more space, less, whatever that happens to be? Is there work to be done? Do you want to undertake that work? Would it be better to let that be done by someone else, depending on your capacity to do that? You know, what sort of return are you going to get for the money that you put in? So you say, okay, well, you know, I'll put $100,000 in to upgrade the bathrooms in the office and do this and do that. But if you're only going to get $100,000 more, then it's probably not worth it, because someone else may even pay a little bit more to buy it, thinking that they're going to get that capital uplift. So they're going to do that value add, and maybe they can do it cheaper than you can, maybe they can't. But you know, from a investing point of view, I think it's really what's the motivation there. You know, as at the moment, there's always people out there looking for particular property. It's just a matter of connecting with the right one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, I mean, that's where you play in, and you know, we talk about Tsimos Commercial Property Advisors. I guess that's where you're really praying some advice for people that are looking to sell. You know, why are you trying to sell? What are you trying to get out of it? And,
and look, from our point of view, sometimes it's not all about saying, you know, yeah, okay, put it on the market for sale. You know, I've done a number of appraisals this year where people have initially thought they might sell and changed their mind and said, okay, well, I'll lease it for at least for the moment. And, you know, other times it does suit to sell. So really, it's just a conversation we have about trying to get to what's going to be important for the client so that we get the best result for them.
Yeah, and that's awesome, John. Thank you so much for sharing that. I guess the last question I have is more of a fun question. We've lived in this post-pandemic, but it sort of seems to be rearing its rearing its ugly head again. I don't even think we're allowed out of the state in Victoria
No.
very far at the moment. But let's vision into the future of any destination in the world that you would go to should the pandemic have ended and you're ready for that retreat. Where would that be for you?
Well, look, I think if we're allowed out of Australia, then
Yeah.
I'd be certainly heading to the Greek islands or somewhere like that, south coast of Italy. Those areas are just superb.
Yeah.
But I suspect that we may also be, milling around with a whole lot of people who are feeling the same way about getting out of wherever they are.
Yeah.
As far as Australia is concerned, if we were confined to Australia, I think the obvious choices, especially for Victorians, is Queensland and maybe northern Western Australia, where the climate's generally a whole lot nicer than ours, particularly in winter. And, just great places to be. And I think, the chance to switch off for a little while is always a high priority for people who are busy. So it's a nice opportunity to get away and do something would be fantastic.
I don't think you're alone in the Queensland retreat there, John. We've seen a mass migration. But
Not
look,
at the moment.
thank you so much for answering those questions and spending the time with us today, John. We really appreciate it, and encourage anyone who's watched this video to reach out to John. We'll post the contact details for John in the comments in this. Thank you again, John. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks, Soren. All the best.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Bye.